The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is September the 10th, 2025. We have a bit of a technical issue with our story this morning, so we're going to be going to Dawn a little bit earlier. But first of all, it is happy birthday, Children's Health Defense. 7 years. It was a World Mercury project before, and then it got changed to Children's Health Defense 7 years ago. And so we have a little video that our marketing department have made for you. I have not seen this yet, so let's run that.
We're all living in a kind of chaotic universe. But for me to have a concrete task that I know is right, I'm going to try to help these children. And I feel like it's a gift. And the more people heap abuse on me, the bigger the gift is in some way. I didn't get into this controversy because I wanted to. I was dragged kicking and screaming into this controversy. I've stayed in it because I don't know anything that's more important. In 2005, I was representing a bunch of commercial fishermen on the Hudson River, suing coal-burning power plants and cement kilns for discharging mercury. We forced polluters to spend almost $5 billion on remediation of the Hudson. And today, the Hudson is now the richest waterway in the North Atlantic. I was also pushing legislation about mercury, and I was giving lectures all over the place.
The criminal discharges just from those plants kill 18,000 Americans every single year.
So these women start showing up at every lecture that I give. They were all the mothers of disabled children, and they believed that their children had been injured by the vaccines. The public health authorities were saying that these women were crazy. But they didn't look crazy to me. If a woman tells you something about her child you should listen. I recognized that there was this huge delta between what the public health agencies were telling us about vaccine safety and what the actual peer-reviewed published science was saying. Then I was like, okay, I got to drop everything and do something about this.
43% of our children have a chronic disease. That is not normal. What is the toxin that touched every American demographic in 1989?
I started calling high-level public officials. None of these people had read any of the science. They were just repeating things that they had been told about the science.
And so my very narrow purpose in starting the Children's Health Defense was to address this problem and get vaccines properly safety tested. Because if they're not safety tested, nobody can tell you with any medical authority whether that vaccine is injuring more people than it's saving. One of the things that I want to announce to you today is that Children's Health Defense, my organization, is launching a journal, a daily journal, and we are going to weaponize information for you. We're going to tell you what the newest science is, and you can get that every day. And to say that there's a whole category of discussion that is critical to our children's health, that we are not allowed to sue on, and now we are not allowed to talk about, is completely antithetical to any democratic value that I grew up with. The cauldron of debate is the only thing that allows governments to develop rational policies in which self-governance will actually work and triumph. We put freedom of speech in the First Amendment because all of the other rights that we were trying to protect relied on that right.
I was removed for something they called malinformation. Malinformation is information that is true, but is inconvenient to the government. And the First Amendment was not written for easy speech. It was written for the speech that nobody likes you for.
The book sold 1 million copies, I think, in 3 months, and with a lot of mainstream corporate media going out of its way to ignore it.
But the government and the pharmaceutical companies have a method for turning off people's brains, and that device is fear. But 33% of the people will not obey. And you are the 33%.
And the only thing between them and our children is this crowd that has come to Berlin. And we're telling them today, you are not going to take away our freedoms. You are not going to poison our children. We are going to demand our democracy back. Thank you all very much for fighting.
What we know is that we're not being dealt with honestly. We're being told this is the science. It's an appeal to authority. We are not going to take it. We are building institutions to fight your institutions. And you have global institutions, and we now have a global institution.
Our job is to go out from here today and reach out to our brothers and sisters, the people who are still hypnotized, and tell them that we are going to fight for their freedom until they're able to fight for it themselves.
Let's go and fight for freedom, and let's build back for our children the America that our parents fought and died for. Thank you very much.
So I can tell you this, I will stand side by side with you, and that if I have to die for this, I'm going to die with my boots on.
I look at some of my friends that I've made over time who have children who are affected, and I see them going through that. And, you know, anything that I go through is like nothing. Nothing. I'm here for those parents.
Well, that was a tearjerker. My goodness. I wasn't expecting that. Well, I, for one, am immensely proud of Bobby Kennedy. I remember the day that I got the call to work for Children's Health Defense. I was so proud. Set up a online TV station, CHD TV. Yes, absolutely, I will do that. And I have to tell you, working at Children's Health Defense, and even working with people like Dawn, who we're about to see in a minute, who works for NVIC, it is the best family that you could ever had. And that includes you, the viewers. As I traveled around on the bus, I was just meeting all of you. We feel like we're just all one, fighting for our children and our children's future. So I do see some people like having a go at Bobby online and stuff like that. I know him, and I can tell you he is a good man that is fighting. I'm so grateful. Never in all this time fighting for Billy has any politician stood up like Bobby Kennedy for my child. And so I will always be a huge supporter of him. And I don't think any of us can imagine how difficult the job is that he is in. So anyway, I just want to make a couple of announcements. We're going to bring on Dawn. So I want to talk you through the week. So tomorrow, there is no financial rebellion. Mary Holland has got a special show for you tomorrow because it's our birthday week. It's Children's Health Defense birthday week. And actually my birthday tomorrow. It's going to be the last year being in my 50s. I have to really enjoy it. Anyway, so that's that. And then Friday, we have a really good doctors and scientists. And Saturday, we have a really good pediatric perspective. We're going to be talking about children's weight loss drugs, which is a really important conversation we've got to have. Mary and I will be on Sunday. But Monday, Dr. Suzanne Humphries is coming back again. She's going to do one more Monday for us with your Q&A because we didn't get to answer all your questions. And so do get ready for that because she's very graciously said she'll be back for a whole hour on Monday. So there's that. And also to remind you that if you've got a story and you want to talk about it, now's the time. There has never been more an important time to tell your story. Contact stories@chd.tv because I can tell you that HHS is looking at these stories. I can tell you that these stories are making a difference in the Bobby's department. So please know that your story is vital right now, whatever it is. Unvaccinated stories are as important as the vaccinated stories right now, as you can imagine, vax versus unvax. Also, for me, the really important stories, they're all important, but the ones that I really, really find fascinating are those of you that vaccinated and then stopped. Same partner, had your babies, and then stopped, because the difference in your household, same environment, is, I mean, that's your vax unvax study, is it not? So do spread the word that we really want to get as many stories in as we can to help with the fight going forward. I want to take this opportunity also, while I have the floor, to thank you, the viewers. I see your comments, I see your love, I see your support, and it means so much to CHD TV team that you're there, some of you every morning. Just thank you for all that you're doing. We are one big organization, family, making this fight happen. So thanks to you. You're not, people who did donate as well, you're not forgotten. We love you. All right, let's play the intro for Dawn's show, and then Dawn and I'll have a chat. Maybe. Oh, what's going on today? Sorry. Guys, this is live TV for you. This is exactly what happens. We have all kinds of technical issues this morning, so that's why I'm rambling on. But Dawn will be here any second. I mean, maybe we'll just bring Dawn on if you like. Maybe. Dawn!
Hi, Polly. Hey. And it was a tearjerker. That was an amazing piece, and especially seeing Bobby testifying in front of the committee that last week, and then seeing Senator Johnson's hearing yesterday. I feel like, don't you feel like sometimes there's so much going on? It's like, it's hard to get work done because it's just so much work just to keep up with everything. So I'm so grateful to y'all for covering these. Yesterday when I couldn't get on to hear Senator Johnson's hearing, I was able to get on through CHD TV because you guys were there and you had it filming, and you're everywhere. So thank you for helping me stay informed, because there's so much going on.
There was so much going on yesterday, and we have a very small team at CHD TV, and there were 3 streams, and we had to pull someone from another department and say, you have to stream this. So it was a bit crazy yesterday, but it worked. We got it out there. But yeah, let's talk about Bobby for a second. I don't know about you, Dawn, but I'm so proud of him.
I am too. And, I've had the very fortunate experience. There were some events that we both were speakers at. And one that was incredibly special was Hawaii. We were invited to be on the steps of the legislature, and we talked. But Kim Hain, who was there, who invited us and put on the event, she did something really unique. And she got a legislative conference room where they host a hearing. And so normally there's a big table at the front, and you have all the legislators sitting there, and then the people who are observing are sitting in the audience. What Kim had arranged is for those of us who came to speak on the Capitol steps about medical freedom and about expanding exemptions in the state of Hawaii, we got to sit in the legislators' seats, and it was myself, Bobby, Del Bigtree, Larry Palevsky. We just had this great group, and the legislators were all invited, whoever wanted to come, to sit in the audience and ask us questions on the panel. And it was just an amazing event. And listening to Bobby speak, everything comes from deep down inside his heart, what he knows. He's convicted. He in his beliefs, he is rooted in doing the right thing. And so is everybody who was on that panel. And it was just an amazing event. It wasn't anything that got press, but, being able to just listen to him speak. And then another event in Florida where we both spoke, he got up and he told these stories. And I'm like, for 45 minutes he spoke. He didn't have a single index card. He didn't have a single note, but he just recounted everything that led up to where he was and how he became so convinced that doing what he is doing in terms of educating the public and advocating for change was the right thing to do. And being in his presence and hearing him speak like that, I just have so much respect for him and what he's been through. Also, the grace and the intelligence that he displays when some of these legislators are just rude and they're grandstanding and they are looking for opportunities to score with their donors. So they take cheap shots at him in these hearings. And he just is able to pull out any of, just the facts and the anecdotes, and he's able to stop them, and in a way that is respectful but also strong. So I'm just incredibly impressed. So that's a couple of stories of my experience with him.
Yeah, no, he's an amazing man, a man of great faith as well. So prayers is something that I know he would be very grateful for. So talking about the other side, if you like, it was quite incredible to see how they treated him in that hearing a few days ago. I mean, it was almost like I can't believe these people are supposedly representing us. I mean, it was like children, badly behaved children.
Yeah. It's like they're trying to score points with their donors, and some of the extremists on the other side, the viewers. And so they don't want to have a discussion. They just want to take cheap shots. They want to cherry pick facts out of context, and they want to talk over him and not let him respond. I mean, several times during the hearing, he's like, do you want to hear my answer? He's trying to answer the question, but they really didn't want him to answer. And I feel like at this point, the more some of these senators were talking, the better Bobby looked, because they just were off the rails. They were calling him a threat, and just in some instances just putting out incorrect information. So anyway, I think that the hearings are really worth watching. So for y'all who missed the Senate hearing where Bobby had to give kind of the state of things and where we're at, and some of these legislators like Senator Bernie Sanders and the way that they questioned him, it is worth watching, but it's also worth watching to see how the other senators, how they responded, the ones that are supportive of Bobby's work, and the facts that they brought up. They were based on facts, not name calling and mudslinging and irrelevant information. It's worthwhile. I mean, we can't always just sit down and watch these things, but I tell you, I bring my phone with me when I go for a walk, and I have my headset on and I listen to these, and I'm so grateful that CHD TV has them broadcast. So go on the archives of CHD TV, go to the Children's Health Defense and click on CHD TV, go to the shows and look for these past hearings, watch them and listen, because you will learn so much, and that helps you inevitably when you go to talk to your legislators about issues that are happening in your state and laws that you can actually pass in your state that will protect you from some of these policies that are going to take time for Bobby and others that are there now and the president to undo. And we need these protections in state law. I do want to mention that President Trump has been doing a bunch of executive orders, and executive orders are fantastic. They definitely help at the time, but it's so important to pass laws in your state to protect you, because executive orders they're in effect for as long as the president is there, as long as they want them to. And then when the next president comes in, they can get rid of a past executive order. But it's a one person. It's not an elected body actually voting. And so while we're so grateful for the president for some of these executive orders that are doing good, it's equally as important to take these issues and talk to your state legislators, because they can put things in law in the states that protect you, that have longevity. And it would take another legislature voting and going through the whole legislative process to pass a law to rescind a law that's already in effect. And as we know, only about 10% of the bills that are filed actually make it to law. It's a lot harder to pass a bill than it is to stop one. So, getting something in effect, it's very hard to rescind it. And so it's a big challenge. So we want those protections in state law. And that's really what, my whole mission has been all these years, is to empower people to pass bills in your state, talk to your legislators, make them informed, because people are definitely making a difference.
Well, thank you, Dawn, for everything you do, because you've been at this a long time, as have I. Right, listen, viewers and Dawn and everyone, you're going to listen a second. This is something that's never happened on CHD TV. We're clearly being attacked. We're going to have to shut this show down and restart it. So please, viewers, don't go away. We have a massive technical problems this morning.
Can I just give a little teaser for what we're going to talk about and why people absolutely have to get back on? We have the most amazing guest, Representative Shelley Luther. I'm not going to steal her thunder because I want her to be able to tell her story. But what this woman has been through, she did not ask to be a state legislator. Life happened. So during COVID, and she went through what she went through, being dragged to jail because of standing up for her rights and the rights of her employees, is amazing. And she's going to talk about her story. But what she did as a freshman legislator, she passed a bill that allows states to hold pharmaceutical companies, our state, Texas, the pharmaceutical companies liable for vaccine injuries. You're going to want to see this, because we have been stymied by federal law, but she had found a way around it, got the bill passed, signed by the governor. It's in effect, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. And she
has a lovely story about her and Bobby as well.
She does. So we'll make sure that she tells.
We can't bring her on unless we close this show down, because this show is frozen on Dawn and I. So we have a massive problem. Lou can't get in. Nothing can happen. They've shut us out. So in the name of Jesus, this will work. We'll be back in a minute. Do not go away, my friends.
Welcome to Advocacy Lifeline. You're live here on CHD TV. Thank you so much for joining us. The purpose of this show is to help empower you, our viewers, to use your voice to affect change in law, policy, and public opinion through education and action for issues that are important to you and your family. I just want to say that this is not to be construed as medical or legal advice, of which it's neither. This is my opinion. It's not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense, who is our wonderful sponsor for the show, or the National Vaccine Information Center, where I work full-time as the Director of Advocacy. I have a very exciting topic today where I'm going to give you some scoop. I have been wanting to cover this topic for a while, and today is the day. I am going to be talking about creative bills in the states that open up avenues for holding pharma accountable for vaccine injuries. Yes, you heard that right. Holding them accountable, liability protection for vaccine manufacturers, and for anybody who administers vaccines have been granted in 2 federal laws. The first of these immunity laws is the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act of 1986, which protects vaccine manufacturers and vaccine administrators from financial liability for the injuries and deaths caused by vaccines. And then in 2011, the U.S. Supreme Court decision in Bruceworth versus Wyeth, when you combine it with the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, it virtually eliminates product liability for manufacturers of vaccines for injuries and deaths caused by government licensed and recommended vaccines. Now, the second of these immunity laws that's in place at the federal level is the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act of 2005. It's commonly heard as called the PrEP Act. I'm sure that you've heard that before. And this also protects vaccine manufacturers and vaccine administrators from financial liability, But more specifically, it's really applied to vaccines that are used during declared public health, quote unquote, emergencies, an emergency declaration. This law is what shielded pharmaceutical manufacturers from lawsuits over the COVID-19 vaccine. These liability protections for vaccine manufacturers have very likely resulted in more dangerous vaccines with more side effects, as the inherent motivation to make a safer product, it's not there when a manufacturer knows they can't be held financially accountable for the injuries and deaths caused by one of their vaccines. And this is such a simple concept. I mean, anybody who's a parent knows when a kid knows that you're not going to hold them accountable for bad behavior, they just continue to behave badly. And that's exactly what is happening now that pharmaceutical companies have been shielded from liability. What's the incentive to truly make a safe product? It's just not there. So finding a way around these federal liability protections has been a relatively new topic and a goal for bills in state legislatures within the last handful of years. Later in the show, I'm going to be going over all these bills that were filed this session so you and your legislators will know about options for filing similar bills in your state. Like I said, I'm not aware of any other show host putting all of these bills together and having the most amazing bill that was actually passed, highlighted, and headlined on the show today. So I'm very happy to announce that 2025 marked the first year a state was successful at passing one of these bills to hold a pharmaceutical company financially liable for a vaccine injury through a mechanism that is not included in the NCVIA or the PrEP Act. Texas House Bill 3441 makes a vaccine manufacturer liable to an individual for a vaccine injury if the manufacturer advertises the vaccine in Texas. House Bill 3441 was just signed by Governor Greg Abbott on June 20th, and this bill became effective in law on September 1st. And what's so amazing is we are so fortunate today to have the bill author who made all this happen for Texas House Bill 3441, Texas State Representative Shelley Luther, as our guest on today's show. She is a fighter. She is a passionate, principled, and real advocate for the people of Texas. What's even more impressive is she passed House Bill 3441 as a freshman legislator. Thank you so much, Representative Luther, for joining us today.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me, Dawn.
Well, before we get into your bill, because not only is this bill amazing, you have an absolutely incredible story. I want to talk about your unique background, especially for our viewers in other parts of the country and even around the world who don't know you. Can you please share your background and what happened to you during the beginning of the COVID pandemic?
Well, I'm a salon owner, and when COVID came through Texas, we shut down for about a month. And then after that, we decided to open up. We didn't think that it was fair that we were shut down. I had a lot of my hairstylists that were working for me saying they couldn't eat, they couldn't feed their kids, and the government wasn't helping. And so my husband and I decided we would just open up. And within a week, I was thrown in jail for opening against the COVID mandate.
Unbelievable. Well, how did you get out of jail? What happened?
So I was sentenced to 7 days in jail. I got out in 3 because the Texas Supreme Court found like a little, something was wrong with the way they filed it in the court. They weren't saying that it was wrong or that, and that I should be out because that's just crazy, which is what should have been. But they found like a little loophole or something in the way that it filed.
Well, thank goodness. I mean, that was so incredibly brave of you. Obviously, you knew there could have been a consequence, but standing up for what was right, what you did then was kind of a defining moment in Texas. You were one of the first ones to stand up like that. And then other businesses started opening and there started to be pushback. And, thankfully, you had the principles and the beliefs to back you, and it was absolutely amazing. You also, not only were you a salon owner, didn't you do some school teaching as well at one point?
I was a high school Spanish teacher for 13 years before I owned the salon.
Wow. So that definitely dealing with unruly teenagers really prepared you for the state legislature.
Yes, absolutely. You're right.
So why did you decide to run for state office? Step us through that. What was your motivation and how did that come down?
Well, I wasn't political at all before this. I was kind of someone that just, would mind my own business and try to do the right thing. Most of the time I was raised by a Marine family. My dad's a 26-year Marine veteran. And so when this happened, I was like, wait a second, this isn't right. I don't think this is what the government's supposed to do. I don't know a lot about it, but I think they work for us. And the more I dug into it, I realized, people were pushing me saying, this Senate seat is open, run for this. And I'm like, well, what do they even do? I didn't even know. And so the more I researched, the more that my values aligned with, conservative values. And I ran for that Senate seat. I actually won it outright, but I didn't win by enough and ended up in a runoff, I lost the runoff. And then I ran again for a Texas House seat and lost miserably in that by like 17 points. And on my third campaign, I actually won that. And it's an incredible story because I wasn't going to run a third time. And I actually suffered a brain aneurysm in 2023 in April. And I was in the hospital over a month. I was in a coma for over 10 days. I had speech issues and I had 8 strokes in 7 days and just was completely out of politics. And then, God reached out to me honestly and said, one more time, you're ready now. And I ran one more time, got a lot of support from local politicians, I would say, and was able to squeak out that race, and I won. And then in my first year there, was able to pass this amazing bill, and I'm really proud of it.
Oh, you absolutely should be. And God definitely had more plans for you. He was not done with you yet, as you're just starting. And we're so grateful that you were able to recover from that aneurysm. And here you are today passing the first bill like this in the country. And it is absolutely amazing. So can you please explain in your own words what House Bill 3441 does? And I'd love to get into your mindset a little bit, like why did you sponsor it? Where did the idea come up with? But first, let's tell our viewers what the bill does.
Basically, because of the vaccine acts, the federal laws that you talked about before, kept us from holding them accountable. And everyone, as a state legislator, I can't really go after them because it's a federal law. But it's a funny story because my husband and I were sitting at home watching TV before the session started. And, we were getting pharmaceutical commercial after pharmaceutical, and not necessarily vaccine commercials, but pharmaceutical. And, my husband has like this little skin condition or something, but the commercial actually said that he could die. He could like throw up his lung. I don't even know. It was like horrific. And I'm like, wow, if people knew this about vaccines, they wouldn't have taken them as willingly. And so I said, I'm like, oh, wait, I'm someone. And so my husband and I came out with the idea of the bill. And I said, you know what, we may not be able to affect the federal law, but we can affect how they advertise in our state. And that's how we attacked it from the beginning.
That's brilliant. And it really is a brilliant approach because here's the deal. When pharmaceutical companies advertise to the media, they're not just getting the benefit of the advertisement. That advertising money is serving as hush money. Don't you dare run a story with a vaccine victim and talk about how the vaccine ruined their lives or even killed a family member. Or we're not going to continue to give you all this money for these advertisements. Now, of course, that wasn't necessarily spoken, but it might have been, but it's definitely understood. You're not going to bite the hand that feeds you. And so during the pandemic, all the promotion for the COVID-19 vaccine and a complete lack of any disclosure of the side effects, what was happening, the signals that were starting to be seen and hidden with the myocarditis, pericarditis, and all of the other issues, strokes. My dad had 2 Pfizer vaccines and he had 2 strokes, one hemorrhagic and one of the blood clot strokes, the ischemic strokes. And I mean, he's never been the same. He's in a wheelchair. He's completely dependent. I take care of him now. He lives with my husband and I. And he was out doing golf games, competing in golf in a senior league and taking care of their home. And his whole life has just been taken, his senior life has been taken away from him. This was never disclosed. People were just shamed, and the president got on TV and, was ashamed of the American public who didn't take the vaccine. He whispered and condemned into the TV screen. I'm like, I can't watch this. I had to turn it off. It was awful. And that's what happened. And so by saying that you can sue a vaccine manufacturer if they advertise, it's going to, through that incentive to not being sued, it's going to stop them from advertising. And if any of them are actually bold enough and brazen enough to continue to advertise, I have this cup here. I drink my water. It says, "Don't mess with Texas." Thanks to your bill, we're going to have a way to go after these companies. These companies are going to be gone after by the families who were, through a false sense of security, a false sense of safety, have taken these vaccines from the ads and that's promoted them and go after them. So I'm sorry, I got so excited about this bill. I'm just kind of, getting excited about it. I did want to bring up the definition of the word advertise in the bill and talk about that. Can you, Lou, bring up the enrolled version of the bill again? So we can show people. Okay, so advertises means media communication, including through television, radio, print, the internet, digital or electronic media, product placement, promotion by an influencer in exchange for compensation. I love that. Or other manner of paid promotion. A vaccine manufacturer purchases to promote the manufacturer's vaccine. Now, of course, the term does not include discussions between a patient and the doctor. It also doesn't include any posters or things that go in the that are displayed in the office. And I know that wasn't in your original bill. Did you have to make a concession to that, or the poster thing in the bill for either it was an amendment or a substitute?
So I didn't have to. The pushback that I was getting was and I know right now doctors are not liable if they give a vaccine. They're protected as well. Sure. But I didn't want the first step to be that we're coming after doctors. We wanted them to feel like there's a way out of this. If you don't want to give this vaccine, it should be your choice type of thing. And we're not condemning you for what happened before. Let's just start fresh and say this may not be correct, and you have your own mind and decide. If there are people that want to go get a vaccine, we need to make sure that the doctor does have some sort of literature or something that they can read about it. But we're also wanting them to list the adverse effects as well. Especially with these advertisements that are saying this is safe, you and your family are safe taking this. But then you watch regular pharmaceutical commercials where they literally tell you can die. And if they would have come out that way and told people, you could really die from this, you could get a heart condition, you can do all of these things, I would look at it a little bit differently. But in this case, it's basically, fear mongering you or shaming you if you were not getting the vaccine. They would use celebrities, Taylor Swift, and all of these people, like I got my vaccine, and basically shaming people into getting this. And that's what I didn't like the most.
Right. And the bill definitely covers that in such a good way. So what's the effect you are hoping this bill has in Texas going forward?
It has a couple of effects I hope it to have. The first thing is stop advertising vaccines in my state, number one. And especially saying it's safe, because we all know it is safe for some people, I guess, but we don't know any long-term effects. It hasn't been long enough, so we really don't even know. But honestly, I hope someone does advertise here, and that some of our parents can get compensated for what they've gone through, especially if their young children got this vaccine and had very adverse reactions.
Absolutely. And, clearly there's a problem with pharma advertising vaccines and advertising drugs in general. Most countries do not allow it. And just yesterday, President Trump signed an executive order targeting pharma advertising, where it's directing, and I'm going to quote this directly from the executive order. And Lou, we've got a link for that if you want to show that. Great. It's directing the Commissioner of the Food and Drugs shall take appropriate action to enforce the federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act's prescription drug advertising provisions and otherwise ensure truthful and non-misleading information in direct consumer protection drug advertisements. That's great. It's going to help the rest of the country. Thank God we have your bill here, because it will protect consumers even further. And, the threat of liability for injuries and deaths if pharma advertises vaccines is basically, it's going to protect people in Texas from being subjected to this one side, like you said, pharma advertising that induces people. It all seems like a rosy walk in the park and nothing bad could happen. They don't really talk about it. They tried, actually, my organization that I work for, the National Vaccine Information Center, we got our Facebook account shut down. We still do not have our account yet. We were shut down because we were putting the VAERS numbers for COVID vaccine injuries and deaths. We were posting those during COVID, and we got shut down for taking government numbers and putting them on social media. Unbelievable. So, if you think back and think about what happened during COVID, how do you think things would have been different if this bill had already been in law?
It's hard to even imagine, because I just didn't know a lot about it. I'll be honest with you. I have two daughters. They were vaccinated because I thought that's what you were supposed to do. And thankfully nothing, happened to them that I know of. And I didn't really start learning about how intrusive the government was until after COVID. And so that's when I started learning more about politics and saying, wait a second, this is my body. And just like the Democrats say, it's my body, my choice, type of thing or whatever. Well, all of a sudden now it's not. Right. But it's like, it's just strange to me that people just fell in line and continued to do what the government was telling them to do without questioning it. And so now I question almost everything. And I'm very respectful when I do it, but I'm like, oh, well, no, I'm not doing that. And a doctor or somebody would say, well, this is what's recommended. And I'm like, well, that's great because that's a suggestion, but that's not a law that I have to do exactly what I say. Right. So I question everything now.
No, that's great. I think that, people, I heard somewhere it's over 80% of the American public took at least one vaccine. And it just shows how, and people that hadn't taken vaccines in years never had taken a flu shot. They were coerced and frightened into taking a COVID shot, and they were not given informed consent. Informed consent would imply that they had been told about the risks. As a matter of fact, there was a concerted effort to hide the risks for as long as possible. We've seen that. That's not even question. You can't even question that. There's too many facts in that. I think that going forward, we don't know what's coming. We don't know what new disease of the day is going to come up and what they're going to try and do. But one thing for sure we know is that we're in a better place in Texas because of this bill. They're not going to be able to put these sunny day, all is good, vaccine safe and effective ads out there. So that's fantastic. So I would love to know, what were some of your biggest obstacles that you faced in getting House Bill 3441 passed?
Well, I presented it as a nonpartisan bill because when I started trying to get, they call it whipping the floor and trying to get people to sign on and co-author it, I ran into 6 representatives out of the 150 that are on the floor that actually had in their immediate family or themselves an adverse reaction to the COVID vaccine. One person had a heart surgery. One person lost sight in their eye. Other members know that it caused autism in their family, and they've been through a lot of things with that. So at first I just said, the Democrats are never going to sign on to this bill because they're so pro-vaccine. But when I started finding out that the people that I was talking to on the floor were Democrats as well, and one of them actually even joint authored my bill, which is a big deal, then it started to roll right after that when people were realizing, wait a second, this happens to everybody. And it's okay if you want to go get another vaccine. That's you, that's your body, that's your family. I wasn't saying don't get a vaccine. That wasn't the message. I was saying it should be your choice, and we should know all of the ramifications that come with that. When we do get a vaccine, that's all I was saying. And and I've always been that way. Well, like even during COVID, when people wanted to wear a mask, I didn't mask shame people. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. Do whatever you want to do. That's fine. But it is your own body, and you should decide what goes, especially in your body, for yourself and your family. And that's how we got it through. We actually had another legislator from Florida, I think, reach out and ask if she could pass my bill. And I said, yes, let's get it nationwide. So we have had other legislators reach out wanting to pass the same bill in their state as well.
And I love that. And because my hope for today's episode actually is to raise awareness about the bill like yours, so we can get them filed in more states. And I was just curious if you had any words of advice for any other legislators considering sponsoring a bill like House Bill 3441.
We've come a long way in 5 years. I think we were kind of robots, and we're just living our lives, and people are like, if I don't bother anybody else, it's fine. There are people that can't speak out for themselves, and it is our job to make sure that they have a voice. And so I just want other legislators to say, this is not directing a person to do anything. That's what government usually does. This is just giving them an option and making sure that they have all of the facts before they make a decision for themselves and their family. And there's nothing wrong with that.
I couldn't agree with you more on that. Now, before you came on, Polly and I were talking about, because CHD has just had their anniversary, 7th anniversary, and we were talking about our stories with Secretary Kennedy, that we knew him, as a founder of CHD and had worked with him over the years. And you had a story too that you shared with us prior to coming on when we were doing a sound check today. I'd love for you to share what your recent interaction with him and tell people about that.
It was awesome. I was so excited. He came to the Texas Capitol because he was signing a bunch of speaking on a lot of the MAHA bills that we had just passed in the legislature. Texas took a huge step forward with trying to prevent, especially kids, with their food and the SNAP programs and things that we have. When I introduced myself to him, I'm like, hi, Secretary Kennedy. Hey, I'm Shelley Luther, and I wanted you to know I'm actually the salon owner that got thrown in jail during COVID. And he said, he was like, oh my goodness. And he gave me a big hug and was really happy to meet me. And then I told him about my vaccine bill, and he's like, this is great, keep going with this. And then I actually got him to sign a copy of my bill so I can frame it and put it in my office, because he has been the steadfast leader in this, unafraid, unapologetic for calling people out with just facts, and just, he's been amazing. So it was really big for me to get to meet him signing my bill, and taking that picture. It was so cool.
That's just awesome. I'm grinning from ear to ear. Just so happy that you had that experience. And it's just, it wasn't for the media. It wasn't anywhere. He did that just because he's a great guy and he believes in what you're doing and he wanted to support you. And that's just who he is. And that's incredible. Well, I just want to ask you, because this is an advocacy show, whenever I have a state legislator on, I like to get your perspectives on some tips to tell people how they can be more effective when talking to their legislators and also staff, because you're so close because it's your first, this was your first session, and you saw what was effective, what resonated with you, what worked, what people should stay away from, and just any tips you can give our viewers as they go forward and talk to their own legislators.
I think it's important to always, no matter how mad you are or emotional about something, keep your cool. Keep your cool, because our day, and I don't know what it's like in other states, but with us, we are rushing back with 2 minutes to do one thing, and everybody wants a minute of our time, which is great. I always talk to my constituents first. If you live in my district, you have my ear. But if you bring factual information and say, look, this happened, or if you have a story that something happened to your child, or something like that where it really affected you and your family personally, those for me are the stories that I hold on to, because when I'm going to work a bill, I can say, I've got someone in my district that their son has this condition because of this or whatever, and I can give them actual real data, not something that the government gave us, real people that I can put a picture or a face or can come testify and say, this happened to them. We've got to do something about this. And that's really what makes it work.
I could not agree with you more on that. To everybody out there, this is the great time to talk to your legislators, because they're not, well, some states are still in session, some states are in recess, but it's not the real grind part of the sessions that are going on. And a lot of states are already out. And this is a time where there's not a lot of other noise to drown out what you'd like to talk about. This is a great time to talk about what's important to you for getting changed in the future, because this is a time where the legislative drafting services can start working on the drafts and applying laws that have been passed or bills filed in other states and getting them written to incorporate into the laws in your state. And so this would be a great time to reach out to your legislators about getting a bill like House Bill 3441 passed in your state. So these tips from Representative Luther really ring true. Make it personal. Tell your stories, what's important. That is what they will hold on to. And I've heard that from numerous legislators. They can just spontaneously use it in a floor debate. They can bring up, because it's what's stuck with them. It's what's in their heart, what moved them, and what's compelling them to either, oppose or support a bill. So that's great advice. Thank you so much for that. Just before closing today, I just want to offer, is there anything else that you were hoping to bring up today that you didn't get a chance to, or anything else that you'd like to say to our viewers?
I would like to say that this bill is step one. And a lot of people are like, well, it's not doing anything right now. And I'm like, people don't understand. This was a huge step. No one thought we could pass this bill, especially a freshman. And we were just relentless with it. And now that we have our toe in the door, our team's already working on the next session of what we're going to do. We want to get rid of all pharmaceutical commercials in Texas. And like I said, I'm a state legislator, so I can't control what happens in the whole nation. But no matter who the president is, if we already have the law in Texas that they can't advertise at all here, then it's always going to be that until it's changed. And so every move that we make in the right direction is a big step. And so I'm really happy to be a part of that. And I feel really blessed to represent this for Texas. And we're not finished.
No, that is just such great news. Well, thank you so much for being so generous with your time today and coming on. Congratulations for an amazing first session and a landmark bill that's going to, I'm sure it's sending shockwaves. Even my husband said this, what's so cool about this is, like, even on state lines, like, you can't stop a radio broadcast over a state border. So it has implications, because they're not going to broadcast something on a city just over the state line, because people within Texas are going to be subjected to those broadcasts and stuff. So this is affecting more than just Texas in a big way. And like I said, one of my biggest hopes is that, hey, any reporters out there, look, you don't have to be worried about this hush money anymore for vaccine advertisements. Interview the victims, interview the families, the people who have been affected by these vaccine mandates. And, so our stories were shut down. Far more people got the COVID vaccine and had bad side effects because the stories of what was happening to victims were stifled. We were shut down in social media. The media wouldn't cover it because they didn't want to jeopardize their pharma advertising. So for you reporters out there, start talking to people. I want to start seeing these stories in Texas because you're safe. You're not going to get your editor coming down on you. We can't run that story, otherwise we're not going to get our pharma ads. Guess what? For the vaccines, you can talk to people. So thank you so much for passing this bill and coming on to share about it. And I look forward to all your successes next session. And I'm sure we'll have something great to have you back on and talk about.
It was absolutely my pleasure, Dawn. Thank you so much. And thanks for being a voice for a lot of people that don't have it.
Thank you. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon. So I'd like to take this opportunity to share with you some other states that would still allow for pharma to be held accountable outside of the federal protections manufacturers get from the NCVIA and the PrEP Acts. So there's some different strategies. Now, none of these bills passed. Only Representative Luther's bill passed, and that's what's so exciting about that one. But, sometimes it takes a couple times of a bill being filed for it to pass. So first I want to start and talk about Arkansas SB 6. Now, what's really cool about this bill is it goes about things a different way. It goes after the bad behavior at pharma. It creates a criminal offense of vaccine harm under certain circumstances by allowing vaccine manufacturer executive officers to be held criminally liable when their acts or omissions cause an individual harm. The bill also establishes a fund to pay for the prosecution of the offense of vaccine harm. Now, the act and the fund in this bill was set to expire, should it have passed, on December 31st, 2026. And I think, that was probably put there to try and help it get across the finish line. But I wouldn't not recommend an expiration date if you're going to file this bill in other states. I think it's great because if a few states start holding the manufacturers liable for if they are omitting any key information, like some of these side effects, I think that would have a ripple effect across the country and make pharma have to be more honest about the harm that the products are causing. The next bill I want to talk about is Iowa HF 712. This prohibits a vaccine from being distributed, sold, or administered in the state unless the vaccine manufacturer waives any immunity from a suit for an injury arising from either a design defect of the vaccine, including the immunity granted by the Federal National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, and it requires that any manufacturer of a vaccine that is distributed, sold, or administered within the state is deemed to have waived, they have to waive all of their immunity to suits from injuries. Love that. So, okay, the federal law is still there, but if you want to put a vaccine out in Iowa, what this bill would have done is vaccine manufacturers would have had to waive all of their liability protection. Fantastic. Really great idea. Okay. Now, Idaho S 1189. This bill prohibits the sale, distribution, administration of gene therapy products such as mRNA vaccines in the state of Idaho unless the manufacturers of these products waive their liability protection, including the immunity granted through the NCVIA. The bill also requires that any manufacturers of a vaccine that is distributed, sold, or administered within the state is deemed to have waived their immunity to any suit from injuries. What's interesting about this is, we have seen how dangerous the COVID vaccine has been, with the more reports in VAERS for COVID injuries and deaths than all the other vaccines combined. So we've definitely seen danger with the mRNA, and there's still a lot of questions about the mRNA technology. So this bill doesn't go after all the vaccines like the Iowa bill did. It just covers the gene therapy, the mRNA, the the mRNA shots and things like that. So it's a little more targeted, but like Representative Luther talked about, sometimes it's important just to get your foot in the door. Okay, next, there's a pair of Minnesota bills, companions, HF 3219 and SF 3456. They both have the same language because they're companion bills, and these bills criminalize the manufacturing, acquiring, possessing, or making accessible any mRNA injections. These bills designate these products as bioweapons. I got such a kick out of that. Call it like it is. And while the bills don't hold pharma directly accountable, they establish a cause of action for the state for failing to enforce it. So this is really one of the best prohibition of mRNA vaccines and products that I've seen. That's why I'm including it. So, I mean, it criminalizes the manufacturing. So I guess a manufacturer could not make an mRNA product in the state of Minnesota. So a cool pair of bills here. Okay, now Oklahoma, Senate Bill 801 holds pharmaceutical companies liable for medical expenses, lost wages, non-economic damages, and punitive damages in instances when their products have been proven to cause direct harm to an Oklahoma citizen. The bill also allows these companies to be criminally prosecuted for gross negligence, fraudulent concealment, reckless disregard for safety, or intentional harm. And finally, the bill prohibits federal immunity protections for these companies from applying to claims brought in Oklahoma courts. This is such a strong bill, such a good bill. You know, I just get so excited, and I'm so happy that legislators in the different states are looking at ways to hold pharmaceutical companies accountable for the injuries and deaths that they're causing with vaccines. This is fantastic. Now, we had a couple other bills in Texas that did not pass, but we did have Representative Luther's bill that passed. But I just want to cover Texas House Bill 3455. And this requires that an experimental drug or device manufacturers to provide a disclosure form with their product that contains all necessary information required for an individual to make an informed decision on whether to use the drug or device, and establishes manufacturer liability for damages that arise from the use of the drug or device if the manufacturer fails to provide the required disclosure form to the purchaser, healthcare provider, or retailer who sells their product to the consumer. An experimental drug is defined as a drug that is experimental or investigational or has been approved by the U.S. FDA as emergency use authorization, EUA, which includes vaccines. Now, I don't know if y'all remember this, but during COVID, if you looked at the product manufacturer package insert for the COVID vaccine, it was blank. It was blank, guys. They didn't disclose anything. What's great about this bill is it would have required all of those disclosures upfront to be given to someone prior to using the products. So that would help with informed consent and certainly save a lot of people from experiencing an injury or death from an EUA vaccine, because they would have been disclosed what wasn't known, and they might have made a different decision rather than only hearing the propaganda advertised about the product where it didn't disclose the risks. So another bill, Texas House Bill 4586, this prohibits pharmaceutical advertisements directed at consumers to the state in the state of Texas, and it provided a penalty of up to $10,000 a day for each violation. So I think, you know, Representative Luther is going to go for this next session as well. She had just said on the show earlier, but that was another good bill. And then finally, I just want to mention West Virginia House Bill 3477. This requires placebo-controlled testing and certain tracking, alerting, monitoring, publishing, documenting requirements for any liability shielded product immune from liability under federal law, including vaccines, that is manufactured, marketed, distributed, or administered in the state. This bill also establishes the individual's right to refuse a liability shielded product without coercion or threat, with cause of action and civil penalties for violations. Now, this is part of it. It's a much bigger, larger medical product liability reform bill, but that's the part, that description I just gave you, that relates to the vaccine part. So another good bill. So it's really exciting to me that so many people in the different states are starting to look for ways to hold pharma accountable. Like I said, I don't have just a thing for pharma in general, but the problem is that products are hurting people. People are being injured and killed, and the government has been propping that up and allowing that to continue. It's rationalized that somehow vaccines, it's okay if we hurt people. It's not okay. People need that information. They need to be free to make those decisions without any harm, without any coercion, without any penalties in their job, in their lives, in their abilities to be able to obtain health care in all the different areas. We need to get rid of the vaccine mandates, but in the meantime, here, while we're working on that, certainly don't fool people into taking a product, making them think that it's safer than it is. Hold pharma accountable for this stuff. And it's great because now with some of these accountabilities, they'll start being more honest and not sugarcoating the benefits and downplaying the risks. So I would love to encourage all of you, please share this show with others, especially legislators and staffers, so that they can think about filing bills like these in their states. What you can do is you can go to the CHD TV website. You can go on a link on the board on the banner for shows and pick Advocacy Lifeline. You can copy the link to this week's show and share it. Please sign up for the NVIC Advocacy Portal at nvicadvocacy.org, because this is where you're going to get all the up-to-date information on how to support these bills when they are moving forward in the legislature. We cover, the position, where it is in the process, talking points, who to contact, when, where, and all the details that you need to be an effective advocate in your state. So please commit to sharing this. You can send the link to the show to your friends, your family on text, post it on social media. We want to get the word out there about there is a way to hold pharma accountable, even though they're shielded federally. And that's what the show is all about. Please consider donations to Children's Health Defense and the National Vaccine Information Center so that we can all continue to do this work. We're all based on donations and as nonprofits. So nvic.org and for Children's Health Defense, please, consider making donations. I want to thank all of you, our listeners on our show. I'm so grateful for you showing up week after week, being committed to being an effective advocate in your state. I will see you in 2 weeks on Wednesday morning again at 10:30 Eastern Time, 7:30 Pacific Time, and everywhere in between. God bless y'all. God bless America, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
All right, well, live. Tell us your name
Hi, I'm Cindy Burtonette.
and tell us your story.
Okay, I am an RN of 36 years. I retired 2 years before COVID started, but my vaccine journey started when I was running a camp medical clinic for our church. We had over 300 kids every month during the summer, and as an RN, it just blew my mind because 50% of the children in these camps were all on daily medication. And I'm like, how did this happen? When did this start? So that got my wheels turning. Fast forward, I had my first grandchild. He was born and he had a bad reaction in the hospital, developed severe eczema. Then I had another grandchild who got the flu shot at 6 months of age, and he had generalized myoclonic muscle fasciculations, which is like a minor seizure that he had for about 2 months before he recovered. And that dug me further down the rabbit hole, and that's when I started putting everything together with the vaccines. And it was a scary moment for me, to learn in '86 when they took away the liability from the vaccine companies, and all these children were getting injured. And so at that point, I had another granddaughter who developed seizures after her initial vaccine. She kept it till she was about 3 years of age. All this to be said, my grandchildren are okay. I'm one of the fortunate ones. I wanted to come on here today to thank you guys for what you're doing, and thank you for giving all of these victims a voice, and to also encourage other parents to follow their gut instinct, to do the research. You know, don't trust anybody about your kid, but do your research and follow your gut. That's the most important thing. Fast forward, along comes COVID. I'm already leery of vaccines, and everything I research on the experimental shot, it's an experiment. You should have a choice. You should have informed consent. And we didn't get that. I have 3 daughters, they're all RNs. Only one got vaccinated. That's because she's at St. Jude. I'm very fortunate for that because we have many friends, family members who have been permanently injured by the COVID shot. And I've been on an island, I feel like, and I think a lot of people that don't get the vaccine have been on an island. You're by yourself. Persevere, stick through it, because you just have to follow your gut instinct. And I do believe that with the help of the Children's Health Defense, that these issues are going to be addressed. When that happens, nobody knows. But because of the work you guys are doing, I mean, it is just heartwarming to me. My husband contracted COVID in February of 22. We were on a trip out west. He got sicker and sicker. I basically was we were living in a living quarters horse trailer. I was basically running an ICU bed out of our horse trailer. Long story short, he gets blood clots in his lungs, he gets bilateral pneumonia, he has the glassy x-rays of his chest. He did not, although he wanted to.
So he did not get the shot, is what we're saying?
He did not.
But he got so-called whatever COVID is.
Yes, and so I followed the FLCCC protocol from day one. I had it printed off. We traveled. I took it with me. When we had to go to the hospital, we went to a standalone ER. I presented my protocol. I said, this is what I'd like to have done. I was expecting to go to war. Okay, I was expecting to go to war. It was a God thing. We went to a hospital. They took that protocol, followed it to the letter. I couldn't believe it.
Wait, so shout out to these people. That is amazing.
I could not believe it. It was in Galveston, Texas, a standalone ER.
Go Texas.
I couldn't believe it.
Galveston, Texas, everybody.
So he was admitted to there twice, just overnight, just to reboot him with all the protocol again, and he came out of it. He did fine. While we were there, a cousin called. She said, Cindy, there is a COVID doctor in Houston, Texas. It was 2 hours from where we were camping, and we made an appointment. It was a miracle we got in the next day, and his name is Joseph Ferrone. And we go in, I give him all the papers. I have a medication list, what I've been giving him, and he looks and he's like, how did you know to do all this? I pulled out my protocol, I handed it to him. I didn't know who Dr. Verone was. And he started laughing, and he said, you realize I wrote this? And I get goosebumps because, I truly believe it was a God thing. And so, I say all this and it was a battle. We've had family members, we've been cut out from family things and holidays, and because we didn't want to get vaccinated. And it even caused problems with my husband and I, because his family's pressuring him to be vaccinated. And I'm saying, it's your choice, but I don't think you should. And he hasn't been, and I thank God for that.
How is he today?
He's good. He still has some lung issues with long COVID, and we are still, a matter of fact, we're seeing Dr. Verone next week. We're talking to him teleconference, but he's actually, he's great. He is great, and I just thank the Lord that, that you all are here, that you are spreading this word, that people can know, that you can have a voice. You can have a voice. Keep digging. Look for the advocate that's going to go in there and help you, but don't let them bully you. Don't let family, friends, if you're on an island and you feel like that's where you need to be, then that's where you need to be, and just persevere. And I really wanted to come here to thank you guys. Thank you because I think you're making a huge difference.
Thank you for sitting there and telling us all of this, and with your experience as well. I'm glad your husband's fine.
Yes, he's
just
good.
One last question.
Mm-hmm.
Does he still say that he thinks he should have got the shot?
No, he does not.
Does some of his family, because he ended up in hospital, I can imagine my family freaking out.
His family thought I was killing him.
Right.
And that's why he was in the hospital, because I didn't let him get vaccinated, so I suffered that ridicule, and had something happened to him, I'd probably had to leave the country, I guess. But no, yeah, he is still, he won't say I'm glad I didn't take it, but he's getting closer.
Yeah, he got through it.
Yeah,
With
he
no
got through it.
vaccine injury, he should be happy.
Yes, exactly.
All right, thank you
okay.
so much.
Thank you.
History doesn't wait. This is our moment to rise, unite, and reclaim our children's health.
Join us here in Austin, Texas this November at the Children's Health Defense Conference.
In the wake of unprecedented medical overreach and censorship, the world is waking up, and people like you are leading the way.
We're at a turning point in history. With the pandemic behind us, our fight for freedom and health has reached the global stage.
This is our moment of truth, and we're ready to seize it together.
And Children's Health Defense has been at the forefront of this charge. Our 2025 conference brings together the leaders, visionaries, and warriors who made it happen.
Meet the parents whose lives were forever changed, and hear from doctors who risked everything to speak out. Stand with those who refused to be silenced.
You are going to hear from world-renowned speakers, doctors, and frontline leaders driving the medical freedom movement.
Discover real-world solutions grounded in science, integrity, and human rights.
Join the discussion to talk about vaccines, informed consent, parental rights, and so much more.
And you'll, of course, hear from your favorite CHD personalities, sharing the latest on CHD's research, litigation, and outreach.
And while you're there, soak up the energy, culture, and music of beautiful Austin, Texas.
Whether you're a parent, a practitioner, or a medical freedom advocate, this is your call to action to protect what matters most.
Be part of the movement that is rewriting the story for generations to come.
So please join us.
Join us.
Join us. Let's make history together in Austin.